Your brain is addicted. We used to think that addiction had to do with drugs and alcohol, but nowadays we're addicted to scrolling, to social media, to sugar, to shopping, to quick, easy dopamine hits that give you instant pleasure without any effort. They feel good in the moment, but ultimately you make no progress towards your life goals. For example, every time you check your phone, every time you binge watch a show, every time you grab the junk food, you get another cheap dopamine hit. And over time, that rewires your brain in a bad way. You lose control, you lose focus, you lose energy. And the worst part in all of this is that you start needing more stimulation just to feel normal. If you don't do anything about this, you'll never achieve the amount of discipline that is required for you to reach your dreams. That's why you need a dopamine detox. And let me be clear, dopamine isn't the enemy. Dopamine is actually so good for you. It's the motivation molecule. It's what drives you to grow, to create, to chase goals. But the distinction here is the type of dopamine matters. When you flood your brain with TikTok, with sugar, with dating apps, you create false dopamine. It's the dopamine that gives you quick highs and leave you lazy, distracted, and actually never ever satisfied. You need high quality dopamine, the one that comes from effort, from progress, from purpose. That dopamine is what gives you real motivation and lasting pleasure. The more you give yourself high quality dopamine, the easier it is for you to stay consistent. And I know that's an issue you have. And you know that if you are consistent, you will achieve your goals. So you need to shift your focus. In this challenge, you're going to detox from the cheap dopamine so you can build the good kind. And you'll see after the detox, you'll become the most disciplined, confident, and powerful version of yourself. I am so excited for this. Anyone can benefit from this challenge because we're all overstimulated. We all have the same issue. But if you're already on the path of self-improvement, this challenge is especially for you because you know your potential. You know you're meant for more. You've seen what you can do. You've done the work before. But if you don't take over your dopamine system, you'll waste your potential. Your brain will never let you reach your dreams. It will always make you make excuses. It will make you self-sabotage, and you will stay addicted like everybody else, staying average in an overstimulated life. If that's not what you want, this is your wake-up call. Right now, you can do something about this. And it's not about cutting pleasure forever. It's about retraining your brain for a whole month so you can crave effort again, so you can love discipline, so you can feel the real drive, the things that matter in life. That is what the Dopamine Detox Challenge is about. It's time to reset your brain and take your power back. Now, I hope that you are so excited about this introduction because I got myself pumped. But let's go into the details of what this challenge is actually about. First, I'll introduce myself. My name is Bianca St. George, and I'm a professional soccer player, but I love self-improvement. This is the 7th self-improvement challenge that I've created, and they're extremely successful. If you want to see some testimonials from the past, you can pause and read through this. But just so you know, I know that these things work. But I'm especially excited for this one because I have put so much work into this to add even more resources than my previous challenges. I know how important this challenge can be because it can change your life. There are a lot of dopamine detox hype out there, but I found them to be way too extreme, not practical, and not have clear step-by-steps on how to go about it. You don't have to worry about any of this here. This is a perfectly doable yet challenging opportunity for you to grow. You can look at the agenda right here in the table of contents. We're going to talk about the habits, the details, the prep, the resources, and you will have everything you need to succeed. But let me warn you, it won't be easy, but it will be worth it. It's a challenge for a reason, so it's supposed to be hard, but it will be fulfilling. And I want you to always remember this quote: if it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. Now, it's time to change and become built different. Let's go. The challenge will happen over 4 weeks. It will start Monday, October 20th, 2025 till November 16th. And it will be hosted on the platform School. If you're already wanting to check it out, it's the first link in my description. What this challenge will be is 6 daily habits. You will have 3 sacrifices and 3 superchargers. You will also have the option to add 2 additional habits, but this option should be for the experienced challenger, meaning the person that have done some of my challenges before. I know you're ready for more, so we're going to challenge you a little bit more on this one. But if this is your first challenge with me, I would suggest that you stick to 6 habits. Now, the sacrifices are basically things that you want to reduce or stop because they harm your brain, they harm your dopamine system. While the superchargers, they're things that you want to add to your life because it will only benefit your brain. Now let's go into the details of the habits. Habit number 1 is to sacrifice technology. Now, before I start explaining this, let me just say something to you. I know that this might feel a little bit overwhelming to look at, but I want to reassure you that every habit has the same structure, the same pattern. So it might feel overwhelming now, but you'll see over habit 1 through 8, it will feel very familiar. In each habit, you have the option to either personalize the habit or use the default choice. If you want to personalize the habit, it happens with 2 action steps. And if you want to do them along the video, I would suggest that you grab a pen and paper right now and start brainstorming along the video. But if you just want to listen, just to really focus, don't worry. At the end of the video, I'll give you the link to all the resources that you need that has all the summaries, all the worksheets, and everything that you need to know to prepare for the challenge. There is not missing any information for this challenge, let me tell you right now. But if you don't want to personalize your habit, you can fall back to the default choice. It's the habit that I picked for you. I just wanted to give you the option to personalize it in case you needed to adapt to your needs and your lifestyle. Now let's get into it. Habit number 1, like I said, is to sacrifice technology. The most common and harmful form of technology today are screens, because screens flood your brain with quick dopamine hits and they steal your focus. And when we say sacrifice technology, we usually are talking about cutting back on your phone use, television, streaming, video games, or your computer and tablet. The goal here is not to avoid technology completely forever. The long-term goal would be to have the ability to use technology intentionally, not impulsively, not as a distraction. So, action step number 1 is to pick one form of tech you overuse or that drains you. So, I gave you examples of what those technologies can be. It's impossible that you don't have an issue with this already because we are all victims here, okay? And action step number 2 is to set a restriction or a time limit on that technology. And you have to be specific here. Let's say one of your guilty pleasures is watching TV. Don't just say watch less TV. Say the specific amount of time or a specific restriction for it. So watch 2 hours or less of TV per day, or no TV after 7 p.m. Things like that. You can read through the examples here. But if you notice, I'm not telling you to stop cold turkey, to not use any technology. All the other dopamine detoxes online, they say to just stop technology like that. But I know how hard that is. And it's not really realistic. It's almost like a shock to your system. What you want to do is cut the amount that you use. So I want you to think about the example of watching TV. Let's say you're used to watching 5 hours of TV a night because you just binge watch shows. If you go from 5 hours of TV a day to 0, it can be really tough to live like that because you'll have so much free time and it will feel extremely uncomfortable. You want to choose an amount that is doable. So maybe cut it to 3 hours instead. And you might think, well, 3 is still a lot. Well, the good thing is if it's too easy, you can always cut down. But if you already say, oh, I'll just do 1, that might be too hard, and it always feels worse when you have to add more time than if you have to reduce the time. Because if you say, I want to do only 1, and then you realize that maybe 2 or 3 is more doable, you'll kind of feel like you're failing or you're not good enough. So you want to avoid those feelings. So start just a little bit lower. If you have a hard time picking, the one that we will do as a community as a default choice is to limit a social media app to X amount of minutes a day. And that's going to be you to determine because we're all different with that. Now, if you want a pro tip, what you have to do is to identify your screen time for a specific social media app, the one that you use the most, and then you'll set the goal to cut it in half. And even better, add a app limit that's on your phone. And if you want to know how to do all those things, it's going to be on the course in the link in my description, okay? It has all the resources for you to figure out how to go about this. Habit number 2 is reading supercharger. This is something that you're going to want to add in your life. Reading is a slow dopamine activity. It strengthens your focus, your patience, your discipline. It's literally the opposite of technology. And what you have to understand is you don't have to read a lot. You just need to read a little every single day. So action step number 1 is to pick a book that inspires growth, reflection, or learning. Most likely it will be a nonfiction book. And action step number 2 is to set a goal. For example, 10 pages a day, 15 minutes a day, a full chapter a day. It could also be at a specific time of the day. But if you cannot choose, this is the default choice we're going to do as a community. Read 10 pages a day. Now, if you want a pro tip, just ask yourself, what problem am I trying to solve right now? And then just read a book about that. Because it's so much easier to read a book when you're interested, you're intrigued, it's relatable to you. You're going to have such an easier time to read when it applies to your life. So think about a desire that you have or a problem that you're trying to solve, and then just go on Google and say best books on attachment styles and see what comes up with that. And then just read that. If they're bestsellers for a reason. It's probably a good book. Habit number 3 is to sacrifice consumption. This habit is about substances that create artificial highs, like things that you ingest that give quick dopamine hits, but eventually crashes your motivation. And let me just say that they're not inherently bad. I mean, some of them are really not that good. But the issue with consumption is that it creates reliance. You start relying on them for comfort, for reward, for escape, instead of using them strategically for balance or performance. So action step number 1 is to pick one thing you rely on too often for stimulation or comfort. For example, could be alcohol, caffeine, sugar, junk food, weed, vaping, nicotine. There's definitely something out there that you could cut back on. And then action step number 2 is to set a limit or a complete restriction, depending on how difficult it is or how safe it is. A limitation example could be something that you want to be using more in moderation, like 1 coffee per day before noon only, for example. Or a complete restriction could be no soda for 30 days. So if you want to do the default choice because you don't know what to pick, just do no of a comfort food that you have. Everyone has a comfort food that they reach out to if they're anxious or tired or bored. You're going to challenge yourself to not have that food for that whole challenge. For me, it's chocolate, like a little chocolate bar that I keep in my pantry. I have tons of those, and I just love to eat a few squares every single day, like clockwork. So just so you know, this is not a forever thing. It's just for a reset. And as you'll see in the rules, you're allowed to experience slip-ups. So if there's something that you kind of like to enjoy from time to time, it's going to be okay. You're going to be able to do it. But the goal is to not be reliant on those things for dopamine. A pro tip here is that not all consumption works the same way. Some substances need limits for safety and practicality, while others can be fully restricted for the full reset period. Food and sugary drinks can be fully restricted. There's no danger to that. But things like caffeine, nicotine, or alcohol should probably be limited safely, not eliminated, because there could be some actual dangers or extreme cravings to that will really make it miserable for you. Habit number 4 is a food supercharger. Upgrading what you eat or how you eat naturally enhances your focus, your mood, and your motivation. The goal here, just so you know, is not restriction. That belongs to the sacrifice consumption. Here, we're talking about adding health into your life through small, consistent choices that compound over time. So action step number 1 is to pick one positive food habit that supports a healthy diet. It could be related to hydration, to whole foods, to protein, to mindful eating, to fasting, to cooking, to timing. And then action step number 2 is to set a goal related to that. So there's a few examples I put here on the slide, but it could be drink 2 to 3 liters of water a day, or delay caffeine 90 minutes after waking, or have one home-cooked meal every single day. There are so many different ways that you can go about this. But if you have a hard time choosing, the default choice here is to drink a glass of water after waking up every single morning. The important thing here about setting a goal is you have to be specific again. You can't just say, I want to eat healthier or I want to cook at home. You really have to be specific of the amount of times or what that means or how you can track that, how you can measure that, because you will have a habit tracker, as I will mention later, and you need to be able to measure your progress. So the more specific you are, the better, the more likely you will be able to stick to your habit. The pro tip here is don't go overly drastic with this. This is about adding small and simple food habit that you can just add to your life. The reason why you don't want to go drastic is because we're already in a challenge right now and we want something that's sustainable. You're already going to have so many little mini challenges with other sacrifices or superchargers. So just pick something that is simple enough for you to track daily. And just so you know, it will make a difference because of the compound effect. You might not see it initially, but over the whole month, it will start to be exponential and you will see a big difference. It's just how it works. It's kind of like magic. Habit number 5 is to sacrifice spending. But let me pause here for a second, because if you're starting to see a pattern, you have seen that so far we've done a sacrifice and then a supercharger. And if you look at it, when you sacrifice something, the supercharger is meant to combat that, because the goal here is not to fully restrict and detox. You want to balance it out and replace it with something positive. So for the technology, we're replacing it with reading. For the sacrificing consumption, we're replacing it with a food. So now we're at habit number 5, which is sacrifice spending. Constant and impulsive spending gives you instant dopamine. It feels so good when you are on the pursuit of buying something new. The problem here is that the quick dopamine hit that you get fades really fast. It really doesn't last. It's not fulfilling. So over time, if you keep doing that, you'll see it will weaken your self-discipline, it will hurt your financial goals, and ultimately it creates a lot of chaos in your life. We're going to sacrifice spending here. So the number one thing you need to do, the action step 1, is to identify your main impulsive habit. And then the action step number 2 is to set a complete restriction, because there is no danger to set a full restriction on something that you don't need. There's no danger in that. All you're going to do is save money and hoard less. So examples is no shopping for the whole month, no ordering food deliveries, no gambling. So think about ways that you have impulsive habits for spending. What can you eliminate? If you can't choose what to do, go to the default choice and have no unnecessary spending for this whole challenge and only buy essentials. This is a simple way to go about it. I have a pro tip for you here, and this one can be extremely helpful. You need to recognize what triggers your impulsive habits. Is it boredom, hunger, stress, FOMO? Because once you're aware of what triggers that impulsive habit, it kills the impulse. Every impulsive purchase starts with a trigger, an emotion, an environment, a thought pattern that pushes you to spend. If you're aware of that and you identify your trigger, you can break the cycle. And if you want a full list of trigger, that's also going to be on the course in my private community that you will have access to. The replacement for sacrificing spending is habit number 6, exercise supercharger. In this one, it's just obvious. Movement is a natural dopamine regulator because it's an effort-based pleasure. But what's beautiful about exercise is that it also releases other molecules that are making you feel good, like endorphins or serotonin. And when you exercise, you're teaching your brain to associate effort with reward, which is the foundation of long-term motivation. You want to know why I'm the way that I am? If you know a little bit about me, you know that I have tons of projects going on. I'm having huge drive. I'm disciplined. It's because I'm an athlete. And when you're an athlete, you learn to put effort as a priority because you realize that it does give you motivation. The more that you put in the effort to exercise, the more you get in return, and the easier it is to keep it going. If you're interested into business, because I am, I've heard this advice so often. If you want to learn how to have a successful life in business, in money, in your career, you need to learn how to get fit because you'll have all the tools you need, all the discipline you need. It's much harder to get a six-pack than to be rich. So then that's just like a funny perspective. So just learn how to move your body more or challenge yourself with movement. And this is a slow dopamine habit. kind of like reading or adding a little bit of healthy food every day, where you won't see massive change overnight, but just trust me that over time the benefits will compound. Now, the action step number 1 is to pick a form of movement that you will commit to. It challenges you but feels sustainable. It could be walking, yoga, jump rope, running, a specific sport, the gym. And then action step number 2 is to set a goal. Run 2 miles a day, complete 100 jumping jacks, play baseball after work for 30 minutes. Get creative with it. Whatever feels like it's the most doable and can kind of fit into your routine easily. If you don't know what to pick, go for the default choice, which is to go for a 15-minute walk every single day. And a pro tip here is that just pick an exercise habit that is simple and trackable, that you can incorporate in your daily routine easily without burning out. We're not talking here about going to the gym every single day, doing this huge exercise routine. Do something that is just small enough for you to be able to do it anytime, anywhere. Now, if this is your first challenge, my suggestion would be for you to do only these 6 habits. But ultimately, it's up to you, and trust yourself if you feel like you can take on the next 2. But if this is not your first challenge with me, I will challenge you to do these 2 extra optional ones, which comprises of 1 sacrifice and 1 supercharger. So habit number 7 is to sacrifice sex or sexual stimulation. And the way I want to say that is being very careful, because I'm not saying that if you are in a loving partnership to not have sex with that person. That's not the goal. The goal here is to understand that, first of all, sexual energy is extremely powerful, but the overstimulation of sex through porn, through casual sex, through constant flirting, through dating apps, that depletes focus and discipline. Everyone is kind of on the spectrum for this, of how much this is a hindrance in their life, but everyone has some guilty pleasures related to sexual stimulation. And this habit is about breaking the cycle of using sex, lust, or attention as easy dopamine. So action step number 1 is to identify a sexual behavior that doesn't give you anything meaningful in return. Like I said, if you are in a relationship and you're having sex with that person, that is awesome if it makes you feel more connected and everything like that. But if you have a sexual behavior where it makes you feel more tired, more distracted, more unfulfilled afterwards, even if they feel good in the moment, that's usually a sign that you are abusing this sexual opportunity. Action step number 2 will be to set a full restriction. So it could be something like no porn, including soft porn, like the things that you see on social media. No masturbation, no casual hookups, no dating apps. Just do a full, complete restriction, because you will benefit from a full restriction. And this is funny because I never really talk about like sexual energy here, but it's a powerful energy. And it's so taboo, but it's so real and normal. So I wanted to include it here because I know that if this is a problem in your life, and a lot of people on self-improvement, especially guys, have a big problem with that, this can be very beneficial to reset your brain. It's normal to like these things. Just like it's normal to like junk food, or it's normal to like scrolling, but that doesn't mean it's healthy. Now, if you want a default choice, I decided to put in no masturbation for this whole challenge, because this applies to people in relationships or people that are single. A pro tip here is, if you're unsure if this habit that you're choosing is the right one, just ask yourself, is this habit making you feel more connected or making you feel more drained afterwards? Because the real connection will strengthen you, while consumption and easy dopamine will leave you empty. And let me say, this is not about demonizing sex, okay? It's about reclaiming control over your sexual energy and detaching from compulsive or validation-seeking behaviors. You're simply conserving your energy and focus that would otherwise be lost through overindulgence. And thankfully, we're going to have the replacement for this, because habit number 8 is connection supercharger. And this one is about creating real, genuine connections. The connection that releases healthy dopamine and oxytocin, the chemical of trust, of bonding, of belonging. It's literally the opposite of the one before, where it's artificial highs from sexual stimulation or social media validation. So action step number 1 here, this one's a little bit different than the other ones, but you're going to create one genuine connection every single day. Examples are calling a friend, reconnecting with someone you've lost touch with, send a message to a community member, or just compliment a stranger. And action step number 2 is to be fully present in every interaction. Don't be distracted, don't multitask, don't be on your phone, don't rush it. Just be there with them. Connection is what brings meaning in your life. This is something that I found very important when I started creating this community. I realized that we need each other. It feels so much better to find like-minded people. And you can be very creative with that. You don't realize how much a little can go a long way. For example, I have a friend that me and her interact through voice memos. And when I get a message from her, sometimes it's 5 minutes long, but it's almost like she's with me. I'll put it on while I'm going on a walk or I'm cleaning the dishes, and I feel like she's hanging out with me because I get it. Our lives do get busy. It's hard to spend a full hour every single day to connect with someone. Because of technology, you can use it in the good way. You can use the voice memos, sending photos, sending gifts, doing something that is meaningful and makes the other person feel seen. If you want to do the default choice, it's basically to send one genuine message each day to someone that you care about. Let them know that you're participating in the challenge if you want to, because you might not have tons of different people to send messages to. I started doing this last year where I told a few people that I will randomly send them good morning or good night text just because I want them to know I think about them. Because sometimes you send those things and people think that something's wrong or that they want to catch up and it's going to be a huge thing. I let them know in advance, like, hey, I'm going to send you randomly like a good morning text, a good night text, just so you know I think of you. We don't have to talk about it, but just acknowledge that you're on my mind. And honestly, it's so awesome to do that. I kind of want to do it right after this video right now because it feels so good to let them know, like, have a good night, have a good sleep, or good morning, and they just respond back and it stays there. And sometimes it does turn into a conversation, but ultimately it just strengthens that bond. And it's so hard to make friends nowadays, and it's so hard to keep friendships going because it takes effort. But you'll see that just little gestures like that keep friendships alive. If you want a pro tip here is to list out names of people that you genuinely care about, that you want to keep in your life. I do that every year. I have a big heart in my journal and I put the names of the people that I want to keep in touch with. And every day I look through it and I'm like, okay, who in this list am I going to do something to them? What message am I going to send them or gift I'm going to send them? If you feel lonely and you feel like you don't have a lot of people, that's what the community's for. The community is full of genuine people that even though they might live so far away from you or they look different than you or they have a different background, we all care about the same thing, our personal growth. So we will be there for you if ever you feel lonely. Quick summary, we've done all 8 habits. You have 4 sacrifices, 4 things that you're going to remove or reduce, which are technology, consumption, spending, or sex. And then you have 4 superchargers, things that you will add to your life, which is reading, food, exercise, and connection. Now, the goal of this challenge is to complete at least 2 sacrifices and 2 superchargers daily. That's at minimum. If you can do all of them, perfect. But try to get at least 4 of them every single day. And you have 3 rules. Rule number 1 is you cannot skip more than 2 days in a row of a habit. That's just good because it keeps you accountable. Having that rule to me is very powerful because it kind of gives you that extra kick in the butt if you need it when you've been slacking a little bit. Rule number 2 is to track your habits every single day. And luckily, I create a habit tracker for you that you can download in the resources. And then rule number 3 is to post a check-in in the group every single week because, again, this adds accountability. A lot of people don't follow through their goals because they don't have accountability, and this is a way to go about it. Here's a little example of what a check-in can look like. It can be an accountability check-in where you share about the specific challenge and the habits you're going through, or it can be a personal check-in where you can share some life lessons or thoughts or insights that you're having. Now, because this is a pretty intense challenge, there is a preparation build that I am offering. It is not mandatory, but I suggest you do that so you can pace yourself and prepare properly for the challenge. So today, what you're going to do is you're going to sign up. It's the first link in my description. Then every single day, you'll have a little bit of like homework to prepare you for the challenge. So the first day, you'll complete journal prompts. The second day, you'll determine your sacrifices. The third day, you'll determine your superchargers. Then the fourth day, you will complete a worksheet, your final worksheet, and you'll print your habit tracker. And then finally, the day before the challenge, we're going to have an accountability call where we're going to meet for final questions before the challenge begins on October 20th. All of the worksheets and resources are located in the classroom tab on the community. If you're watching this a little bit later than what we're planning to build, don't worry. This doesn't have to be done at a specific time. You can do that at any time on your own pace. I just wanted to give some sort of structure available in case you wanted to really take the time to intentionally let it marinate inside of you and give you the time to do it together. But you can do this at any time. And I know that it seems like a lot, but trust me, it's not that much. It's simply a few questions. And this is the investment that you're going to need to make for you to have as smooth and successful of a challenge as possible. Now, there is a prize associated to this, and this is to win a one-on-one live coaching session with me. The way to win is basically to engage in the community. The more you engage, the higher you rank. And if you make the top 10, you will enter a draw where you will win a chance to win the session with me. Just participate in the community, vote in the polls, put comments, share insights, interact with other members. And the more that you do that, the higher you will rank. Now what? You have 3 things to do. First, sign up. The first link in my description is where you will register and I will accept you in the community. Then you're going to head to the course. Go to the classroom tab. It's very intuitive. You will have everything you need. The habit tracker, the journal prompts, the worksheets, the summaries, the FAQs, everything is there. It's detailed. I put so much work in that, so use that. And then once you're done with that, there's also a checklist there to make sure that you have everything done before the challenge. And then once you do that, introduce yourself. Post your first community post. Post that you're ready. Say who you are. Say why you're joining the challenge. We want to know you. We want to know why you're with us now. And if you're a returning challenger, tell me why you keep coming back, why you love this challenge, what you're excited about. The new you begins now. I'm so excited to have you here. Remember, the challenge starts October 20th, but if you're watching this after October 20th, you can come in anytime. We're here for you. So let's take our potential seriously and let's become built different, because we're going to do things differently than the average person. So there's no way we're not going to be successful. Thank you so much for listening into this lengthy, intense video. I know this is a lot of information, but your investment right now is for future you. You will be so thankful that you put in the time right now. Now, thank you so much for listening. I love you so much. And I will see you very soon in a new video where I post self-improvement content. All right. See you soon. Mwah.